I still remember that morning like it was yesterday. My stomach ached from the shots I'd been taking for weeks. I walked into the hospital alone, clutching a folder full of medical papers. My hands were shaking so badly I could hardly sign my name. The nurse tried to smile at me, but she looked confused. "Is your husband coming later?" she asked softly, as if she already knew the answer. I forced a little laugh. "He's busy, work, you know how it is." Her smile faded. "This is a big moment. No one should have to do it alone." I nodded, but I didn't say anything. Because what could I say? That Jason, my husband, the man who once swore he'd give up the world for me, wasn't by my side when I needed him most. That he was probably at some theater across town, watching another woman dance, while I lay on a cold hospital bed praying for our future child. That thought cut me deeper than any injection ever could. After the procedure, I sat in the waiting room, hunched over with a dull pain in my lower belly. My phone buzzed in my hand, and I typed a quick message. "It's done. We might be parents soon. I'm excited." I stared at the words for a long time before hitting send. Then, out of habit, I opened a social media app and searched his name, Jason Miller, my husband. The first post I saw was from a fan, a bright, smiling photo of Jason sitting in the audience of a theater. The caption read, "Dream come true. Got a selfie with Jason Miller tonight at the ballet." The timestamp hit me like a punch. He was there exactly when I was lying on that hospital bed. And the show. The lead dancer was Chloe Rivera. I felt my whole chest tighten. Chloe. I had seen her once during rehearsals for a TV performance. Young, gorgeous, full of energy. Jason had mentioned her name a few times in passing, too casually, like he wanted me to believe she was irrelevant. But the truth was right there, staring me in the face. Later that night, when he came home, he found me curled up on the couch in the dark. "Why are you sitting here without the lights on?" he asked. Like nothing in the world had happened, I looked at him and asked one simple question. "How was the show?" His whole body froze, just for a second, but it was enough. I knew. He recovered quickly, spinning some story about his assistant, about passing by the theater, about curiosity. 10 minutes, he said, just 10 minutes. But I had already seen Chloe's post, her photo from the stage, her caption about him calling her the most radiant star in the room. And I knew the truth. That night, while he showered, I sat in front of the TV. His latest interview played on the screen. They asked him to sing the song he had once written for me, the song he performed on our wedding day, the song that used to bring me to tears. He refused. He said it didn't fit the vibe. Instead, he sang something new, a song called "Dancing in My Heart." And just like that, I knew he had written a song for her, for Chloe, the man who once told me he would never write for anyone but me. I don't remember much after that. Just the sound of the shower running, the sight of his towel slung over the bathroom door, and the bitter taste in my mouth as I realized I was living with a stranger. The next weeks were worse. Chloe's posts, their dinners, the late-night texts. I pieced everything together in silence. My hands shook each time I scrolled, but I couldn't stop. I was addicted to the pain, as if knowing more would make me stronger. And then, the final blow, I was pregnant. Not naturally, it was from the treatment, of course. The tests came back positive. I should have felt joy, relief, hope. But instead, I felt dread. How could I bring a child into this mess? How could I raise a baby with a man who was already halfway gone, with his heart in another woman's hands? When the paparazzi snapped a photo of me a week later, heavier from the hormones, pale from stress, the headlines were cruel. Once America's sweetheart, now forgotten wife. They laughed at my body, at my weight gain, at how much I had changed. Jason called me that night, his voice sharp and cold. "Emily, how could you let yourself go like that? You embarrassed me." I will never forget those words. Not after everything I had endured, not after every injection, every lonely doctor's visit, every night I cried myself to sleep. That was the night I decided, "Jason," I said quietly, but firmly, "we're done. I want a divorce." For the first time in months, I felt a strange peace. He shouted, argued, tried to charm me, tried to guilt me. He said I'd regret it. He said I'd never make it on my own. He said no one would want me. But his words slid off me like rain. I had already made my choice. A week later, I signed the papers. I walked out of that house with nothing but a suitcase and a quiet strength I hadn't felt in years. For days, I sat alone in my small apartment, staring at the city lights. It was terrifying, lonely, but it was also the first time I'd been free in a long, long while. And somewhere deep inside, I felt a spark. I knew exactly what I had to do next. The first week after the divorce, I barely left my apartment. I sat on the couch in sweatpants, surrounded by half-empty coffee mugs and unopened mail. I stared out the window at the Los Angeles skyline, wondering what in the world I was supposed to do next. I hadn't worked in years. Jason didn't just want me out of the spotlight, he insisted on it. He told me acting was toxic, that it would destroy me, but the truth was simpler. He couldn't stand the thought of me being brighter than him. I had given up my career to please him, and now I had nothing to show for it. No marriage, no family, just an empty apartment and a bruised heart. One night, I opened a box I had shoved in the back of the closet. Inside were old scripts, headshots, fan letters. The sight of them made my chest ache. Once upon a time, people had lined up for my autograph. Once upon a time, I had believed I could be great. The question burned in me. Could I ever get that back? The next morning, I called Linda Brooks, my old agent. She picked up with surprise in her voice. Emily, wow, it's been a while. Are you okay? I hesitated. I want to work again, Linda. I want to come back. Silence. Then a sigh. Honey, the industry's changed. You've been out for years. New faces are everywhere. You're not 25 anymore. Her words stung, but she wasn't cruel, just realistic. That doesn't mean you don't have a shot, she added, but you need to know it won't be easy. You'll have to fight for every audition, every role. I'll fight, I said, and I meant it. The first audition I went to was humiliating. A small role in a streaming drama. I walked into the room, script in hand, heart pounding. The casting director barely looked up from his phone. When I finished, he smiled politely and said, "Thanks, we'll be in touch, of course." They weren't. Audition after audition, I heard the same thing. You're talented, but we're going in a different direction, or worse, you just don't fit what we're looking for. Some days, I sat in my car afterward and cried until my throat hurt. Other days, I drove straight to the beach, let the wind whip my face, and reminded myself why I was doing this. Because I refused to let Jason be right. I refused to be the woman who gave up on herself after weeks of rejection. I finally saw an open casting call for a period drama. The script was rich, layered, full of women with real depth. I wanted it more than anything. When I arrived, I almost turned around. The waiting room was full of fresh faces, young, flawless, confident, girls who looked like Chloe. I sat down anyway, clutching my sides to keep from trembling. When they called my name, I walked into the room and poured everything I had into those lines. My pain, my anger, my longing. I wasn't acting. I was living. The director leaned back when I finished, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," he said. "We'll let you know." I left with my heart pounding, convinced I had blown it. But that evening, Linda called. "Emily," she said, almost laughing with disbelief. "You got it. They want you for the queen, the lead." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it might burst. I had done it. I was back. But of course, life has a way of testing you. At the first table read, I saw her, Chloe Rivera. She wasn't the lead, thank God. But she was in the cast, a supporting role, a scheming concubine. Our eyes met across the room. She smirked. It was as if the universe wanted to see if I was really strong enough to face my demons. During rehearsals, she made little comments under her breath. "Careful, Emily, don't mess up your lines. It's been a long time since you've worked, right?" She laughed softly, just loud enough for me to hear. I ignored her. I had no intention of letting her pull me down. But one day, we rehearsed a scene where her character disrespected mine, and the queen slapped her. The director leaned over and whispered, "Make it real, don't hold back." So I didn't. My hand cracked across her cheek, echoing in the room. For a second, everyone froze. Chloe's eyes widened, filling with fury. "You bitch," she hissed, lunging toward me. It took 2 crew members to hold her back. The director's voice cut through the chaos. "Enough. This is acting, Chloe. If you can't handle it, maybe you don't belong here." She backed down, but not without shooting me a look of pure hatred. That night, I walked out of the studio and found Jason waiting for me outside. Chloe clung to his arm, her face still red from the slap. "Emily," Jason said, his voice sharp, "if you have a problem with me, fine, but don't take it out on her." I laughed, actually laughed. "You think that was about you?" "Not everything is about you, Jason." Chloe smirked again, but I could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. What she didn't know was that I had planned ahead. My assistant had recorded the whole scene, the director's instructions, the slap, Chloe's meltdown. By the next day, the footage was online. Fans were furious. They saw Jason comforting Chloe outside the studio, saw the way he defended her, saw the truth laid bare. Within hours, his reputation nosedived, sponsorships pulled out, his tour was canceled. For the first time in years, Jason Miller wasn't the star, I was, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. But this was only the beginning. Because as much as I had clawed my way back, I knew the fight wasn't over, not for my career, not for my happiness, and not for my future. The weeks after the slap felt surreal. My face was suddenly everywhere: magazines, blogs, entertainment shows. But this time, the headlines weren't cruel. They weren't mocking my weight or calling me a has-been. They called me the queen who returned and the woman who fought back. People were rooting for me. It felt strange at first. I had gotten so used to hiding, so used to shame, that I almost didn't know how to stand tall anymore. But little by little, I let myself believe it. I let myself remember that I had talent, that I had worth. Chloe, on the other hand, was finished. The video of her tantrum spread like wildfire. Directors whispered that she was unprofessional, difficult, not worth the risk. Within days, the producers quietly replaced her. Jason tried to do damage control, posting some pathetic notes online about being misunderstood, about focusing on family. But people weren't buying it anymore. Fans were furious. Sponsorships pulled out one after another. His concert tour was canceled before it even began, and I kept working. The show premiered that fall, and the ratings exploded. People couldn't get enough of the queen I played: regal, strong, ruthless when she had to be. Viewers flooded my social media with love, calling me inspiring, saying my story gave them hope. I cried more than once reading those messages, because for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't just surviving, I was actually living. A month later, Linda brought me a script for a feature film. "This could be big," she said. "But they're looking at other names too, younger names. You'll have to fight for it." "I'm used to fighting," I told her. I auditioned. I bled my heart out in that room, and when the call came that I had landed the lead, I collapsed onto the floor, laughing and crying all at once. That was the day I met Daniel Hartman. He was the film's cinematographer, tall, quiet, with kind eyes and a camera always hanging from his shoulder. The first time we spoke, he said, "You probably don't remember, but years ago I shot one of your magazine covers." I squinted, trying to place him. "Really?" He nodded. "I was brand new, nervous as hell. You told me I was doing fine, that I should trust myself. It meant more than you know." Something about the way he said it, so genuine, so unpolished, stuck with me. Jason had always made me feel small, even when he pretended to love me. But Daniel looked at me like I mattered. During filming, we spent long hours together. Between takes, he'd tell me about his travels, the projects he wanted to shoot, the risks he wanted to take, and he listened when I talked to really listen, not just waiting for his turn to speak. I had forgotten what that felt like. One evening, after a long day, we sat outside the studio, sharing takeout on the hood of his car. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Regret what?" "Walking away from everything, starting over." I thought about it for a long time. "I regret staying as long as I did," I said finally. "I regret losing myself for him, but leaving? No, I'll never regret that." He smiled softly, like my words meant something to him, and I realized, sitting there with greasy chopsticks in my hand and laughter bubbling up from nowhere, that I felt lighter than I had in years. Meanwhile, Jason was unraveling. Every few weeks, he found a way to contact me: new numbers, new accounts. Sometimes he begged, sometimes he accused. "You ruined me." He wrote once, "You'll regret this when no one else wants you." I didn't reply, not once, and yet, part of me still kept track of him. Old habits die hard. I heard when his voice gave out after a night of heavy drinking, when doctors said he'd never sing the same again. I saw the photos of him looking bloated and tired, clutching a bottle outside a club. The man who once told me I wasn't enough was now a shadow of himself. I should have felt triumphant, and a part of me did, but mostly, I felt free. Because I finally understood, his downfall wasn't my responsibility. It never was. My responsibility was me. That winter, the film with Daniel premiered. Critics praised my performance, called it a comeback worth watching. The cinematography was hailed as breathtaking. And Daniel's name was suddenly everywhere too. At the after party, I found him across the room, surrounded by reporters. When our eyes met, he excused himself and walked straight to me. "You were incredible tonight," he said simply. I laughed. "So were you." He hesitated, then added, "I mean it." Emily, you deserve all of this, and more. There was a weight in his words, something unspoken. My chest tightened, but in a good way. For the first time in a very long time, I let myself imagine what it might feel like to love again. Not the way I had with Jason, clinging, desperate, hoping to be enough, but a love that lifted me higher, instead of pulling me down. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready, but maybe, just maybe, I could be. And as I stood there, surrounded by laughter and flashing lights, I knew one thing for certain. I was not the same woman who once sat alone in a hospital, waiting for a husband who never showed up. I was stronger now. I was whole, and I was just getting started. The months that followed were some of the busiest and happiest of my life. The film I shot with Daniel won awards, interviews poured in. For the first time in years, I was asked questions about me, my process, my craft, my choices instead of about my marriage or my body. I remember one journalist asking, "Do you feel like this is a comeback?" I smiled, steady and calm. I don't think of it as a comeback, I think of it as starting over. On my own terms. The headline the next day read, "Emily Sanders, stronger than ever." I taped it to my fridge. Through it all, Daniel was there, not in some flashy, headline-grabbing way. He wasn't like Jason, who thrived on the spotlight. Daniel was quiet, steady. He brought me coffee on set, listened when I was anxious, reminded me to eat when I got too caught up in work. Little by little, I realized I wasn't just grateful for him, I was falling for him. One evening, after another long shoot, he walked me to my car. The night air was cool, the lot empty except for us. "Emily," he said, almost hesitant, "I don't want to cross a line, but I need to tell you something." I turned to him, my heart thudding. "I care about you," he said simply. "Not just as an actress, not just as a friend, as you." For a moment, I froze. Then I thought about all the nights I had spent waiting for Jason, all the times I had twisted myself into someone else just to keep him happy, and I realized how different this felt. Daniel didn't want me smaller. He wanted me whole. I took a deep breath. "I care about you too." That was the beginning. We took it slow. Dinner after shoots, walks on the beach, quiet Sundays with coffee and scripts scattered across the kitchen table. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, not the kind that burned hot and fast. It was steady, safe, real. And that was exactly what I needed. Meanwhile, Jason was unraveling completely. Chloe had moved on to a new benefactor, trading him in like an old car. The tabloids caught her with a wealthy producer. And just like that, Jason was yesterday's news. He tried to stage a comeback, but the industry had closed its doors. No one wanted to work with him. His voice was shot, his reputation worse. I didn't follow the details closely, but sometimes his name would pop up online, mugshots after a bar fight, rumors of debt, whispers about him begging for work. The man who once told me no one would want me was now the one nobody wanted. Life has a way of balancing the scales. A year later, Daniel proposed. Not in front of cameras, not with the show, just the two of us, in the kitchen, with takeout containers on the counter. He pulled a small box from his pocket and said, "I don't need a perfect moment. I just need you, for the rest of my life." I cried, and I said yes. We married in a small ceremony by the ocean, just close friends, family, and the sound of waves crashing in the background. I wore a simple dress. He wore a navy suit. When I looked into his eyes, I didn't see ambition or ego. I saw a partner. 2 years later, we had a daughter. Holding her for the first time, I felt something I thought I had lost forever: hope. One afternoon, when she was 5, I stopped at a convenience store with her. As we walked out, a man stepped forward. "Emily," he rasped. "It's been a long time." I turned, frowning. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. His hair was thin, his belly soft, his eyes bloodshot. And then it hit me: Jason. He smiled weakly, his voice hoarse. "This your little girl? She's beautiful, looks like you." I tightened my hold on my daughter's hand. "Yes, she's mine." "You must be happy," he said. "I am." He nodded slowly, his eyes heavy with something between regret and resignation. "That's good, really, that's good." I could see the weight of years on him. The years he had wasted chasing the wrong things, clinging to ego, drowning in lies. "Take care of yourself, Jason," I said softly, then I walked away. As the door shut behind me, I felt no anger, no longing, no ache, only peace. Because I finally understood, my story wasn't about him anymore. It never really was. It was about me, about the girl who once gave up her dreams, about the woman who took them back, about the mother, the actress, the partner I had become. I had been betrayed. I had been broken. But I had also been rebuilt. Stronger, wiser, freer. And if there was one thing I wanted my daughter to know, it was this. No matter who tries to dim your light, you don't stop shining. Not for anyone. Not ever. Looking back, I don't hate Jason. I don't even hate Chloe. They gave me the hardest years of my life, but they also forced me to find myself again. If not for them, I might still be living small, waiting for someone else's approval. Now, I live for me, I work for me, I love for me. And I've learned that the sweetest revenge isn't anger, or even justice. The sweetest revenge is happiness, and I have it. That's all for today's story. Thank you for listening. This is my channel. The tales I share drawn from life or woven from imagination are meant to offer you connection, reflection, and perhaps solace or newfound strength. If you long to see your own reflection in others' journeys, or seek a glimmer of light within the maze of emotions, subscribe to my channel. Listen with your heart. Explore the stories of life.